I am Emma Jordan-Simpson, president of Auburn Theological Seminary. Auburn is a 200-year-old seminary, an institution that equips leaders of faith and moral courage to trouble the waters and heal the world. And I am absolutely delighted that I get the opportunity right now to be in conversation with a beloved troublemaker and healer. Troublemaker and healer. We want to keep those words together.
Absolutely.
Adaku Utah, who is a member of Auburn Seminary's Sojourner Truth Leadership Circle, the Reproductive Justice cohort. And just a couple of words about Adaku before we jump into this conversation. Adaku is a queer Nigerian strategist, a facilitator, a healer, committed to cultivating movements that are strategic and nourishing and sustainable. And so for over 20 years, her work has centered in movements for radical social change with the focus on gender and reproductive justice and race and youth and healing justice, some of what we're going to talk about today. She was most recently the organizing director at the National Network of Abortion Funds, where he played a key role as a strategist, innovator, and implementer, building and mobilizing the left flank organizing power and movement building efforts with 90 plus member organizations, individual members, and network leaders across the country and world. And as I said, he is a member of the Reproductive Justice cohort of Auburn's Sojourner Truth Leadership Circle. And I just have to say, this is a very special conversation for me for a couple of reasons, because I too was a member of the Sojourner Truth Leadership Circle and am eternally grateful to Auburn Seminary, particularly the Rosalie S. Ginsburg Fund for Women's Leadership Development, for continuously investing in leaders like Adaku. So I'm really glad to welcome all who are joining us from wherever you're joining us and however you're joining us. But welcome to our conversation. Please just kind of listen in today. Adaku, where are you? Where are you calling in from?
Well, first of all, I want to just extend gratitude, imela, as we say in Igbo land. And I am so grateful to get to be here with you, bear witness to you, with you inside of this conversation. It is always moving and humbling for me to get to be in the presence of elders who have held this sacred work of liberation and freedom with such integrity and grace and fun. And no, but seriously, fun and just in such an accessible way that allows so many of us to enter into this sacred circle. And I feel really blessed to be counted as one of the folks that you're drawing in closer.
Yeah.
Grateful to be a part of the Sojourner Truth Leadership Circle. Grateful for Lisa Anderson's leadership for bringing me into this village, this tribe. And I'm glad that I get to be having this conversation in my homeland, where I just arrived 2 days ago. So I'm currently in Lagos, Nigeria. These lands raised me. These are the lands of my people, specifically Igbo people. These lands were the first seeds that were planted in me around what it takes to organize, what it means to really cultivate an ecosystem of care that really holds the dignity of our lives. So Imela, again, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, it's so good to be here with you in this conversation.
Thank you, Imela. I want to begin first by just spending some time talking with you about your work as a healer. I know that has been a big part of your work, your journey, your engagement with people. You spent a considerable amount of time here in my borough, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. I'm still connected to Brooklyn, so don't get it twisted.
So why this grounding in healing, and what is healing justice?
Yeah. I mean, to me, and to so many folks who are here, and welcome also to the folks who are here, and all the ways that you are fractals of freedom. You know, our presence, our abilities to be able to live our own lives on our own terms, to me is the gift of healing. Being able to, first of all, reassert, particularly for Black folks, that we are human, and really remapping our bodies, our spirits, our relationships to our bodies, and also our communities towards life. There's so much that tries to organize our lives towards punishment, revenge, destruction. And healing for me reorients that we get to be here. We get to restitch and repair what has been broken, what has been taken away, what has been erased, and really imagine and embody the kinds of lives that are accountable and loving and thriving. And that is such a deep act of revolution and a deep act of love and care, especially in these times when so much is eroding in our lives and on the earth. And you know, it's such a courageous thing to be able to extend our vision beyond trauma. You know, trauma, oppression really shrinks what we are able to see and receive and connect with in this precious life. I believe that we're infinite beings in these finite bodies. And we get to be in this lifetime for a certain amount of time. I'm also someone who believes that we live many lifetimes. And in all the lifetimes that we live, can we do so in a way that's in right relationship with our ancestors and our transcestors, the future generations that are coming, and also in integrity with ourselves, our heartbeats, the pace that we need to breathe in order to feel most alive. So yeah, so much of the work that I have been able to do really centers this this call, this mandate, this embodiment of healing that feels so necessary in making sure that life is more possible. And healing justice specifically, and you know, I want to give a lot of honor to folks like Kara Page.
Yeah,
folks,
beautiful.
Yeah, folks like you all too. Folks like the Young Women's Empowerment Project, folks like organizations like the National Network of Abortion Funds, and so many Black organizing for leadership and dignity who have helped to really offer language to what healing justice is. And just healing justice extends itself beyond just focusing on the individual and really centering community-based practices, shifting of powers that really allows for healing, safety, resilience to be recentered inside of the work of justice, of social justice, and really recognizing that we have all experienced violence our whole lives. Our ancestors have experienced violence our whole lives, and that leaves an imprint on our collective memory. It leaves an imprint on, it changes us. And for some of us, it moves us further away from liberation. And I think healing justice is an opportunity, not just an opportunity, but a framework that allows for multiple pathways of restoring what has been harmed in a way that helps to sustain our people and our work.
You did a couple of things. First of all, you referred to me as an elder, and I receive it. This is absolutely an intergenerational conversation, and I am excited about that because you note that healing. You mentioned courage.
Yeah.
And so the sense that I'm getting is that to pursue the healing, to pursue our healing, to pursue Black healing, is to be courageous, which is a very different message than the message that my generation got. Because courage meant to press through difficulty. It meant to press through even when you were hurt. It meant to exhaust yourself, to spend yourself. That kind of courage or pursuing that kind of courage is the reason why so many in my generation had difficulty accessing mental health support, emotional support. That's not something that we're supposed to do. And all of that is those are trauma responses.
Absolutely.
Absolutely trauma responses. So I'm ecstatic to be having this conversation that is just music to my ears about, just imagining what could be happening if we were grounding ourselves in this notion of healing and our birthright.
Yeah.
So that takes me to this image that I've been holding on to. It is the image of a bill of sale. From 1849, owned by, and it was passed down to his son, a gentleman in Alabama. It's a bill of sale for an 18-year-old woman, Jane, and her 1-year-old son, Henry. But what keeps this image in my mind is, I've seen these bill of sales before, but this was the first time my eyes trained on these words, Jane and all her future children. That this man bought Jane, her Henry, and all of her future children. And trauma, the legacy of trauma, chains of trauma. And what are you thinking about that? Like
I mean, you were gonna say. I mean, my heart is warm and I'm getting goosebumps just hearing you and even imagining Jane, so many Janes in our lineages who inherited this depth of trauma, these generational curses. And, it's when I hear you say it, it even amplifies for me why healing is so necessary. Because it asserts that we are not for sale. We are not for sale. And that part of the healing that we get to do in any moment in our lineage breaks those generational curses and really holds that we get to live abundant, powerful, beautiful lives that we, us, Emma, you, your children, your children's children, your children's children's children, get to be free, and even more free than the next generation that came before. And there are so many folks like Bill who want to put our bodies up for sale.
Yeah.
And if we don't move in accordance, if we don't say yes to punishment, for a lot of us, we are killed, we are imprisoned. There's a lot of reward from capitalistic punishment and reward from living in a world that is patriarchal and capitalistic, and choosing to break free, choosing to say, no, I am not for sale. And this is, I mean, we're speaking of it, and of course it requires so much work that is individual, that is collective, that is generational, to be able to keep breaking those chains. And also making sure that we're not imprisoning one another. There are ways that we also hand that bill of sale to ourselves and in our relationships with one another as Black people. You know, what are the ways that we erase each other and minimize the magnitude of our own power because of what we have learned from white supremacy, what we have learned from people who have stolen our bodies.
And that bill of sale also reminds me, you know, of the women in my own lineage, you know, who were raped and forced to give birth before emancipation. And then the women after emancipation who were raped and forced to give birth and forced by their religious communities in honor of or in homage to whatever was their notion of what it meant to be a good Christian. And there, I am imagining like this tether from that bill of sale that just, you know, we keep holding on to, you know, that Jane with no agency, no autonomy, no say over her body and over her child, Henry. The right to raise her child, Henry, and her future children. And that conversation, that whole image, I think, is what also brings us to a very different understanding of what reproductive justice is, right? That it's not just, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about reproductive justice.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
In these times.
Oh my goodness. In these times. And, you know, I'm extending a lot of gratitude for the women that you just lifted up in your lineage who moved through sexual violence, who were forced into birth. And I want to honor the wisdom in their wombs. I want to honor the resilience, what they had to do, what they knew to do, the ways that they were creative in reclaiming their own bodies, even when their bodies were being taken in a number of different ways. The powerful thing about us as people, particularly Black people and our communities, is that we make sure that trauma and violence don't stand alone. That in every fractal of life that we have lived, we have asserted ourselves and said no many times over and over again. No to what tries to shut us down and kill us
Yeah.
and criminalize us. And yes, to Black life, to Black love, to Black magic. And to me, you know, when we talk about reproductive justice, even before it was the words reproductive justice were put into words, there were so many folks, ancestors and transcestors, who were embodying this framework, you know, creating birthing places in their homes using traditional practices with plants to make sure that a trans person was able to have an abortion or be able to give birth on their own terms. And I also want to give so much love to the 12 Black women who came together in 1994 and made loving agitation towards the Clinton administration, you know, when they put out multiple health bills around how we should be cared for. And they said no, that our bodies have been left out and that we need to be at the center. So when we talk about health and healing, that Black bodies, Black reproductive liberation is a human right that is not just focused on choice, it is also focused on how can we access the full range of what we need to live whole lives that are ours, to be able to have children, to not have children, and do so with resources that we need. And then, you know, reproductive justice is one of many pathways that this whole field of reproductive liberation uses. There's also reproductive rights, which really focuses on the legal landscape, really making sure that there are laws in place that support our reproductive sovereignty. And then reproductive health that really focuses on what are those key services, those direct services that are so urgently needed, things like access to abortion, things like contraception. And reproductive justice holds all of this as necessary, and that Black folks are not just recipients of services, but we are also leaders. We are also shapers in how reproductive justice, reproductive liberation actually happens. It also asserts that we get to have pleasure and joy in our lives. This is not just about all the fuckery. It's like all the stuff that's trying to break us on a daily, but this is also about building sacred community that is joyous and pleasurable and fun. And also brings in our kinship with the earth. That what it means for us to be able to feel, like literally feel our bodies breathing right now. Yeah, is also connected to how the world breathes, how the trees outside are breathing. And so I'm grateful for the framework. It has shaped and saved my life. I know so many folks that I know and have worked with see themselves even more because of this framework that was gifted to us and also passed down from so many ancestral generations.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about how liberating it is as a framework, that we're talking about the right to have children, the right not to have children, the right to nurture children in a safe and healthy environment, the right to pleasure.
The right to pleasure. The right to pleasure. Are you being pleased right now?
something that I learned as even, to be expected. Like we were to work. We were to work hard. And that we would have pleasure. That was not a part of the framework of that generation. I remember, I'll share that I remember having to have surgery. And I had been in, so I went into the hospital, I had surgery, and I came out of the hospital and I'm in my library right now, and my husband turned this library into like this amazing convalescent space, flowers and everything that I love. He put in here, which is why we're going to keep him. Right, we're going to keep him.
Okay.
But I said to him one afternoon, sitting in this room, I said, I didn't realize how much pain I was in.
Yeah.
Until I was no longer in pain. Because that kind of being in touch with body, the orientation and the pushing through, pushing through pain for some goal, yes. Let's talk about breaking generational curses, and let's talk about setting people free, and let's talk about this absolutely liberating framework that it absolutely says to us that what we've been dealing with in these last years, not just since June and the Supreme Court's decision, the Dobbs decision, but what we have been dealing with is a desire to be free.
Yeah.
To be free. And it's about more than access to abortion. It's part of it.
It's part of it.
It's a part
of it. It's
not
all of it. Yeah. Absolutely. And, focusing, I think one of the reasons why reproductive justice for me is so revolutionary, because, the reproductive health and reproductive rights feel for so long focused on abortion because of how much it benefited white women. And reproductive justice really expanded when we think of healing and who gets access to health, who are we thinking of? What bodies are being centered? And when we say this is what it means to heal, are we putting standards around healing and healthcare and bodily autonomy based off of a white body, a rich body, a body that has access to education, a thin body?
What do you mean when you say bodily autonomy?
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about it. It's freedom. It is our right, our ability to be able to claim our bodies as our own.
I include privacy in there. I include privacy in that understanding as well.
Yeah. And, whatever happens within and around us, we get to choose that. We get to choose, this is me, and this is what I desire and what I long for. And that is trusted. It is believed, it is supported. It's to me, it's freedom. And I really appreciate you talking about the pushing through, and I think so much, I mean, I really relate to that as someone who comes from migrant parents. I have Nigerian parents who grew up during the war, and so much of our survival, like so many Black people, is connected to pushing through, to making it through the day past so much destruction. Lying about how we're doing. I mean, lying was such a pivotal strategy for a lot of enslaved people, so that they didn't get sold off or their children didn't get sold off. Like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And this is something that's been passed down, where, because our bodies have been and continue to be, and, based off of even how this current government is choosing to control people's bodies, there's this constant narrative of your body's not your own. And so of course we push through to survive. Of course we do that. Of course we forget ourselves. Of course, sometimes it might feel too painful to even feel what is our own, because for some of us, it is antithetical to survival. But we reclaim that all the time. In fact, I mean, that is how you and I are alive right now. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here if even our cells weren't organizing themselves towards life. Like the way that everybody's looking at us right now, and how that's connected to your nervous system, and your nervous system talking with your circulatory system, to all of the folks who we are connected to via community, who chose to love us in ways that were beyond punishment, and who chose to see more of us, to see us, and I keep saying this, on our own terms, and really show up when we need it. And I'm grateful that we get to be a reflection of that, especially in these times.
Yeah. I am really hearing the healer in you. I am really hearing that, and I'm thinking about, yes, in my context here, in the US.
Yeah.
But you, tell me, what does this look like globally? Like, how are you thinking about care and healing globally?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that I have a lot to learn, especially as someone, I grew up here. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, but I've spent most of my life in the US. And so I come from, and also so much of the way that I view the world comes from this privilege of being a US citizen. And so much of how I want to make sure that I integrate myself to what does it mean to hold this work on a global perspective is to move from a listening stance, and really unlearn some of the things that I have learned about what it means to have access to healthcare within a US context for Black bodies and Black queer bodies, as a dark-skinned Black queer person in a country where you can be stoned to death for being a queer person. You can be put in jail for accessing or even naming that you need certain kinds of healthcare. Organizing strategies, how folks are able to bridge care in their homes and communities looks very, very different than what it looks like in the US. And something that I get really excited about is just how much more the word I'm looking for, there's a lot more integration of ancestral spiritual healing practices with the body. The lines, the power hierarchy between health practitioner and someone who's receiving care are a lot more blurred here. There's a lot more from what I've experienced. And obviously it looks different depending on where you are and what you have access to. But from my own experience, particularly with the folks that I've been working with, there is more concentration on really building up people's own capacity to be able to heal themselves and their own communities, not necessarily relying on Western medicine.
Okay.
But how might we also use what's been passed down? How might we also use plant medicine that is literally growing everywhere? How might we use song and ritual and dance to be able to ease the nervous system and call in the dignity of Black life, you know? So that has been humbling for me to witness. I'm excited to learn more. And I think also because of the ways that there's so much, well, the criminalization looks very different, obviously, here. There are even more creative ways that people are relying on each other and creating their own ecosystems of care in their homes, you know, in schools and churches, so that people are not only getting care from themselves and one another, but they're also protecting each other as they're accessing care and not relying on these other systems of hospitals. So,
I was thinking when you're talking about getting healing among us, the medicine, the natural medicine that is around us and within us. I was thinking of something I heard once about that literally said the medicine is among us, the answers are within us.
Yes. It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I'm so excited about you.
I'm excited about you. I'm curious about what has been healing you these days. I mean, you, as a lot of Black women that I know, you know, hold so much for so many. And I hope that you get to do it in a way that is really pleasuring you, is also sustaining you, is making you feel as much joy as you bring into all the spaces that I've seen you. But I'm curious for you, what has supported, what has and what is supporting your own healing?
Thank you for that question, because it gives me a chance to think about it. I do have a deep faith. And it's the faith that was that I interpret from you know, my ancestors, and particularly those who gave us the Negro spiritual.
Come on.
That body of those sounds that are subversive at their very core, and that are about life and freedom and there being another world possible. So I'm grounded in that faith, and you know, I believe in, you know, being in community. And so having a strong community and being accountable, you know, having a strong community that I feel accountable to, is just it. I don't have a word for it. It is joy. It is absolute joy. And then, you know, I love young people. Because so my children get to benefit from that, right? But
of course.
I love young people because I love the promise of tomorrow. And so when you asked me that question and you laughed, that was joy for me. Is to hear that laughter, to know that you are bringing you and the members of your cohort,
Yeah.
you
Shout
that
out
you
to my
are
cohort.
bringing quality of leadership that is grounded in love, that is accountable, that is prophetic, that is endeavoring not to be a response, just a response to trauma.
Yeah.
That opens doors and creates these frames for like all of us. So it's not just our own community, but like there's light and there's light for all of us. And for me, that is joy. That is joy. Because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. You know, I love Bernice Johnson Reagan, who once said, she said, good times. What did she say? That good news is not the same as good times.
That's right.
Right. And that this good news, which, you know, stands the test of time, it stands in difficulty, it stands in, you know, the cloudy days and through tears and through struggle. And within that, you know, this good news sort of wrapped up in joy that the world didn't give and the world can't take away. And that's not just about like good times and when we're laughing and when it is the real, it's the sort of through line that I see, you know, in my own lineage, in the way that people have been able to smile, but to also be honest and truthful, you know, about the reality of this world.
Yeah.
That to me, like that, just thinking about that is joy and wanting to send that joy into the future. That's what holds me. That's what holds me, because I see a future.
Yes, I see it too.
That holds me. That holds me.
I see. Thank you. I feel it. I mean, I'm a part of the future that you're creating.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. You are the part of the right now.
Absolutely. I feel that. I definitely feel that.
Let's just be clear about that. Right now.
Yes.
The right now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And that is intergenerational.
Yeah.
That there are healers and doctors and doulas and lawyers and all of folks working in childcare, like the holistic nature of it all.
Absolutely.
I think sends a very different story to the world. Mm-hmm.
It does, you know, and it's one of the many things that I'm so grateful for about Lisa Anderson's leadership and Auburn Seminary, and you for being so intentional about, because you know, you put a cohort of people together, you can bring anybody together. But there was such an intentional, thoughtful design to make it intergenerational. I mean, I think oftentimes our movements can be so siloed, having young people over here, elders over here. And, you know, it's part of the Black radical tradition to be in intergenerational learning that is holistic in this nature, that brings in, you know, the doctors and the nurses having conversations with the farmers and the organizers and the birth workers talking with the dancers and the herbalists. And, you know, we all hold a piece of the medicine that is helping to create a free world, a more free world, and more free bodies. And to me, it's one of actually the few spaces, particularly all Black spaces, where I've been able to experience that magical mix of intergenerational healers and troublemakers that hold so many different roles. And I would say for myself, and I've heard a number of people say this, that being together in this way changes how we do the work.
Yeah.
Because when we're in our particular domains, it can be so easy to focus on our own strategies that are important
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and make impacts. And there's so many other ways. And we become even more powerful together, pulling in all of these different tools that each of us are using or are trying out to move closer towards reproductive justice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the time that we have left, I want to ask you 2 questions.
Okay.
One, I want, like, who has been the most hopeful figure in your life or your circle, your past, who has sort of like inspired the most hope for you? And then when you think about the road ahead for all of us, what's the message that you want to send to people who want to join in the struggle for us all to be free?
Wow, such great questions. Such great questions. Wow, there's been a lot of people who have exemplified hope in my life. And the first person that I'm thinking of is my mom. And I, like so many folks, have a very complicated relationship with my mom. You know, she's this short, stout, very loud, kind of unapologetic person who actually was a Pentecostal pastor in Lagos, Nigeria. She had a church for a number of years, but she, as she got more politicized, she moved closer to her own traditional spiritual practices in Igbo land. And so much of that had to do with, really believing that, the spiritual ideology that we hold believes that God is love and is in all things, and really wanting to explore more of what that looks like in herself and in our community. And she has been through she's been through so much in her life. And she, no matter what comes her way, she always says that she's like, there's always a path. there's always a path, and there's always a way, even if she has to make it. And I physically spiritually seen her do this in instances that were so deplorable in our lives. When we were homeless looking for housing, when I was chronically ill as a child, when we were trying to move to the United States and figure out how to exist as migrants. And there's so many examples. But she finds a way. And the other thing is she's committed to her own healing. So I think part of how we're able to have a relationship now is because she's doing her own healing work, breaking her own generational chains. She didn't have a relationship with her mother. Her mother left her at the age of 1. So she's doing her work, and we have a relationship. We have more of a relationship now. And I'm grateful. I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom.
Hey, Mom, if you're watching, hey, Mom.
And, my message to folks who want to be in this work is, you are a necessary part of how we get free. And it is really important to believe that in the first place. Like, every single person that exists in this time, we all have a role. We all have magic. We all have something to offer towards our collective freedom. And it doesn't have to look like what Emma and I are doing. You know, you don't have to necessarily be an organizer. It could be through how you're parenting. It could be how you are choosing to build relationship with your neighbor. It could be through the relationship that you have with your body. And I want to invite folks to really extend your vision and how you move through the world beyond yourself. Yeah. Because how you are able to survive is because other people are making that possible. There are other people, whether you know them or not, whether you know their labor or not, are working so hard to make it possible so that you have a job, that you can work, that you have access to healthcare. There are organizers working right now, making sure that we have more pleasure in our lives. And we can also be a part of that too, to make it even easier for other folks to be able to access more joy, more freedom, more love, more hope. Failure is a part of this. Yes. We will fail and make mistakes, and we get to try again, and we get to try again. And hopefully we get to do that with less shame and more courage and more vulnerability. And I also say that one of the most beautiful things about this work is that we don't do it alone. For anything that we might want to do, there is somebody who has done it before. There's someone who's working, there's someone or an organization that's working on it in your city, in your state. So you don't even have to reinvent the wheel. You just get to connect. You just get to connect. And so please do so. We have a short amount of time in this lifetime, and let's put it to good use for the sake of all of us.
I am in heaven listening to you.
I feel the same way about you. So the same way about you.
Thank you for this time. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a healer. Thank you for being a troublemaker. And thank you for your wisdom and for just issuing that incredible call for folks to join into this struggle, into this life. More love, more hope, more all of that.
Abundance.
Right. That was the call. That was the call. I'm so grateful for you.
And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you and all the imprints of freedom that you have left through the decades. Our future is more possible because of your faith, your commitment, your unapologetic joy. And I'm just eternally grateful for who you are at your core, not what you do. You do so many things, obviously, but who you are at your core moves, like I said at the beginning, with a lot of integrity and faith.
Bless you. Bless you. Thank you to all who have joined us, listened in to this conversation, and I hope that you feel hopeful as we do, and I hope that you got a bit more insight into reproductive justice, into being grounded in healing, and that you have a role to play. You absolutely have a role to play in our struggle to be free. If you want to learn more about Auburn's Sojourner Truth Leadership Circle, I'm going to invite you to visit the Carrying Place website, because there you're going to find leaders like Adaku. It's a new digital platform for people committed to providing space, respite, retreat, and restoration for Black women, Black women identified women, faith and spirit rooted justice leaders, as well as all who love and support them. That website is called The Carrying Place, and there will be a link in the chat. Visit that. You can also visit the Auburn Theological Seminary website. It's just auburnseminary.org. Send us your email, get connected with us, and let's walk together. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.